Hey everybody. So for this video, we are continuing with the nervous system. We are moving into nervous system 1, part B. So to begin this, on slide 2, you can see we're talking about synapses. So these are going to be some terms that we've already discussed. I wanted to give you a little more time to focus in on these different concepts and to make sure that you fully understand what we're talking about. So here, we're going to talk about synapses. So a synapse is going to be a space where two adjacent neurons are going to be in communication with one another. I'm going to keep going back and forth between these two images just because I think it's important. So actually, let's go with this image too. Here we have a nerve cell in the middle here. You can see the soma right here where my mouse is. And you can see the dendrites as well as the axons all on this one cell. What you can also see in this axon and on this axon down here, these are going to be the axons from different neurons. They are going into, they're innervating with this neuron right here. So in other words, here's an axon coming to the cell. Here's another axon coming to the cell. It doesn't matter. Whenever an axon is in communication with another cell, as you can see what this little circle is, they're going to create a connection. And if you zoom in, here's what it looks like. And this is what that communication looks like. If we further zoom in on this box, it'll look like this image. All right. So here we can see the pre-synaptic end, which is before, and this is the postsynaptic end. So if you have pre and post, where the heck is the synapse? It's in the middle. The synapse is this little gap in between the presynaptic and postsynaptic neurons. So literally, the synapse is in between these two gaps. So with that said, the first neurotransmitter that we learned about and the one that we focused on in detail in chapter 9 with the muscles is acetylcholine. The reason why we learned about this is because it's muscles. These are neurons and muscle cells that are going to be in communication with one another. So most of the communication within the nervous system happens with acetylcholine. So in other words, here is one neuron. Here's the axon of one neuron, the yellow. And then here we have these vesicles. That's a fancy word for these little white sections. These are like little bubbles. So the vesicle is basically a bubble that's going to hold the neurotransmitters in it. Why? So that the neurotransmitters just don't roam freely and release whenever they want. So these vesicles are going to maintain or hold these neurotransmitters until a stimulus occurs, where the axon sends a signal, and then the vesicles are moved towards the exit, as you can see here, and released. Once the vesicles get here and they release all these neurotransmitters, which are these little dots, the neurotransmitters can move across the synapse, the gap, and attach to receptors on the other side. Again, these are all terms we've been talking about over the last few weeks, but now we can see it here. One example of a neurotransmitter, one that we talked about, this could be acetylcholine. Notice how I say it could be. This is just a generic model. This can be many different neurons, but the one we typically talk about is acetylcholine. So if we continue, a chemical synapse, important chemical, the structure of it has the presynaptic neuron before the synapse, the yellow. And we also have the postsynaptic neuron, and that is going to be on the opposite end of the synapse. Pre is before, post is after. Keep in mind, again, this is where memorization versus truly understanding comes in mind. If you truly understand what's going on here, you should understand that neurotransmitters are held in the vesicles on the presynaptic neuron, right? Because this is where they are, and then the postsynaptic neuron is going to have the receptors, because the goal is to send neurons from the presynaptic side, where the signal is coming from, to the postsynaptic side, where we want to send the signal. That way something actually happens. So vesicles with neurons or neurotransmitters are on the presynaptic side, receptors postsynaptic side. If you have any questions on synapses, please let me know.